Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Darkest Dungeon. Darkest Dungeon is a roguelike turn-based RPG with a strong eldritch horror theme. It was developed by Red Hook Studios on February 3rd, 2015. The game takes a deep dive into what it would probably be like to play hero against horrifying creatures of the night. This game is unforgiving to say the least. Throughout your playthrough, you'll see your so-called heroes suffer, and many will perish along the way. As such, Darkest Dungeon has been called unfair and luck-based by many. But, if you truly understand the game's mechanic, take calculated risk, and come to terms with inevitable loss, Darkest Dungeon is a glorious game that will deliver a one-of-a-kind experience to anyone brave and bold enough to play it. That being said, however, this video is not entirely focused on Darkest Dungeon as a whole. No, this video is focused on the one particular character in the game. So, without further ado, let's get down to business. Jesters were members of the household, particularly of noblemen and monarchs. They were paid and employed to entertain guests in the royal court, and for all intents and purposes, that was all they were. Jesters were entertainers for the wealthy. Any form of physical entertainment you can think of has probably been done so by a jester. Singing, dancing, acrobatics, juggling, and so on. Of course, comedy is an essential for any good jester. Now, one may think that mockery, stereotypes, or general jokes around the royal family is off limits. Well, quite the opposite actually. Jesters are given a specific right to joke and mock about anyone. This right is symbolized by the bright attire they wear and the scepter they wield. Interestingly, the tradition of jesters may go further back than some expect. In ancient Rome, for example, ballatrons did pretty much the same thing, and were usually welcomed to the table of the wealthy for their amusement. Other cultures, such as the Aztec and the Chinese, employed cultural equivalents to the jester. Sadly, the tradition has largely died out in the 18th century, except for in parts of Russia, Spain, and Germany. They didn't last long after that, though. Now, let's turn our attention to the jester in Darkest Dungeon, Saramenti, formerly named Jingles, believe it or not, and in terms of appearance, he definitely looks the part, sporting a bright outfit, bells, and a teardrop mask for extra style points. The jester in Darkest Dungeon seemed to be a twist on the common bard archetype in most RPGs, with an almost assassin's edge to it, thanks to the sickle and dirk that he dons alongside his lute. The Jester's in-game lore is not a very happy one to say the least, and as it goes, the Jester was performing for the tyrant and his royal guests one night. As he performed, he reminisced about all the torture that he has endured at the tyrant's hand. So, while everyone was distracted, he cuts off the tyrant's hand and slaughtered the rest of the guests, leaving behind a bloody finale. The Jester's lore may even be a reference to the song Duel of the Jester and the Tyrant by Chick Corea. In-game, the Jester can be a great helping hand and an excellent addition to your teams. He can provide support to his allies and even dish out damage of his own, starting off with this will be the Jester's damage contribution to your team, and while the Jester's direct damage isn't that great when compared to others like the Leper or the Hellion, he does perform remarkably in damage over time, particularly bleed. Armed with his sickle and using either harvest or slice off, he can deal a respectable amount of damage over time. This makes the Jester a welcomed addition for any good bleed team, alongside the Flagellant, Hellion, and Houndmaster. With such a team composition, you'll surely have no problem blasting through the Weald and the Warrens, as the enemies over there have a lower bleed resistance. On the other hand, it would be wise to avoid the ruins and the cove, as the enemies over there are anything but weak to bleed. In addition to that, the Jester's target of choice being in position 2 and 3 are pretty good ranks to target. The third rank usually having some of the more frail yet dangerous enemies such as stress casters and or damage dealers. On top of that, the Abomination's Beast Bile and the Grave Robber's Flashing Daggers also target the same position, being able to synergize well with Jester's Harvest. But with so much talk about blood and killings, it wouldn't be such a bad idea to wind down with some tunes, don't you say? Ah yes, the reason why most people bother bringing a Jester to their teams in the first place. The support aspect of the Jester plays heavily into the traditional bard role I've mentioned before, playing musical tunes to inspire and buff allies. Let's take a look at Battle Ballad first. The appeal of this move is that it boosts your team's offensive potential by increases your team's speed, critical chance, and accuracy. For the cost of the Jester's own turn, you are drastically boosting the attack potency of your 3 other teammates, allowing them to perform amazingly. The buff can also be stacked up to 4 times, increasing its potency and can be reapplied as needed. Inspiring Tune, however, is a purely defensive and reactive ability. The Jester is one of the only heroes that can heal stress damage in battle consistently, besides the Houndmaster, and even that is based on chance. Being able to reduce stress is extremely powerful, as it prevents your team from going insane and becoming afflicted. It also helps you save gold and relics that would have been used for the abbey or tavern, and divert those precious resources to something more important such as the guild and the blacksmith. Reducing stress in battle also frees up respite points while camping, to do things like preventing a nighttime ambush, further buffing your teammates, etc. And finally we get to Finale, which in my opinion is the Jester's most iconic move. Every time you use one of Jester's moves, besides Finale itself, it gets buffed. The buff lasts for 8 turns and therefore there's little point to keep buffing it after that. Solo helps quite nicely in this instance. Using it as a last buff right before you cast Finale is ideal. This is because Solo not only provides the biggest buff to Finale out of any other move, it also sends the Jester all the way to the front, which is where he would need to be in order to use Finale. On top of that, Solo provides a massive dodge bonus, making sure that the Jester stays alive long enough while on the front lines to use the move. Finale not only serves as the Jester's highest damaging attack, but also the highest damaging attack in the entire game. After buffing it for a maximum of 8 turns, using offensive trinkets on the Jester, and utilizing the Plague Doctor's emboldening vapors, it is known to one-shot even the hardiest of enemies and bosses as well. Plus, you can't deny that this move gets bonus points for just having so much style and flair to it, right? Welcome to the end of this video. The Jester I talked about here is mainly focused on his appearance in Darkest Dungeon 1. Now, I am aware that there is a Darkest Dungeon 2, A Glimmer of Hope. It's just that, well, I haven't played the game for myself, so I have no idea how he'd act in the second game. Though I'd wager he'd be just as fun, if not more than, in the sequel. My upload schedule has been pretty horrendous lately, since I have some stuff going on, but I still very much love creating videos, and showing your support would mean a lot. But with that out of the way, that is all for now. Have a wonderful rest of your day.